Morning has always been one of my favorite parts of the day. There's something peaceful about these quiet little routines. But lately, mornings like this have started to feel a little different for me. Pouring a cup of coffee, tidying up the kitchen, starting the day slowly. For most of my life, mornings like this were often the only time when everything felt still. Because once the day got going, life had a way of pulling me in 100 different directions. Kids, jobs, responsibilities, people who needed me, things that had to get done. And like a lot of women, I got very used to being the one who carried things, the one who kept everything moving. But somewhere along the way, something in me started to shift. Not in a big dramatic way, just quietly. And little by little, I started letting go of things I'd been carrying for years. And I realized something surprising. When you stop holding on to the things that were never really yours to carry, life gets a whole lot lighter. And that's what we're going to talk about today. You know, there's something I've noticed as I've gotten older. I care about people just as much as I ever did. But there are certain things that I simply won't put up with anymore. I just don't care anymore. I don't chase people the way I used to. I don't explain myself like I used to. And I don't carry everyone else's emotions the way I used to. And quite honestly, that change didn't happen because I became old and crabby. It happened because after years of being the one who held everything together, I finally realized that I wasn't happy that way. So little by little, I started putting some things down. And the surprising part is life got a whole lot lighter. And I got a whole lot happier. Well, good morning and welcome back to the channel. Well, today we're going to continue that conversation we had last week about always being the strong one, because one of the quiet freedoms of getting older is realizing you don't have to carry everything anymore. And when you finally stop caring about the things that were breaking your heart, making you feel bad, you actually make room for the things that deserve your time and attention. And there's something that I think happens as we get older that we generally don't talk about because it's not dramatic, it's not loud, it's not even something other people always notice right away. Something shifts. I think you slowly realize that there are things you used to care about so much. Things you used to worry about, things you used to carry emotionally that you simply don't care about anymore. Don't have the time, don't have the energy. I don't mean that you become cold or, well, haha, isn't that the old meme? We get old and grouchy. No, we're not playing into those stereotypes about older people. Well, maybe it's just finally saying, hey, I'm not playing that game anymore. Don't have the time, don't have the energy. And quite honestly, we don't have the health we used to have. And that doesn't mean we stop caring about the people in our lives. And it doesn't mean that we become that meme, unkind, thoughtless, no longer loyal to old-time friends. But at some point, you stop carrying things that were slowly draining the energy out of you. And when you do that, here's what happens. You feel better. Life feels lighter. And for many of us, especially for older women, that change can come after years of being the one who held everything together, whether it was our family, our marriage, our kids, our parents, and our friends. The one who fixed things, the one who always showed up. We always talk about being the dependable one. And if you spent a lifetime being that person, the moment when you finally stop carrying that load carrying the responsibility, while it can feel a little bit strange, it can feel incredibly free. Yes, you have to get over an awkward stage, but give yourself some time. I've realized something about myself over the years. I've shared before, I've been the one who people turn to when something goes wrong. I never get invited to Cancun for the girls' trips, but I get invited to sit for coffee and help someone work through a business situation, a personal situation, the one that helps figure things out, the dependable one. And for a long time, I'll be honest, I think I wore that role almost like a badge of honor. It was my identity. I'm not always proud of it. But what I also never noticed was why, or the people never stopped and said, "Are you okay?" And I did a lot of that to myself. But I think a lot of women reach that point in life where they suddenly realize they've been carrying that role for such a long time that they even believe it about themselves. Honestly, I'm curious if any of you have ever felt like you were the one that everyone in your life, in your bubble, leaned on. And sometimes we do it to ourselves. Sometimes it's all we know. But what I would say is there are some things you can do to really stop this cycle. 5 things that will make a big difference in your ability to stop caring, but more importantly, to let go. Let go of all of that stuff you've been carrying for decades. So number 1, stop chasing people. No, we're not talking about stalking, nothing weird. What we are talking about is one of the first things that many of us learn to stop caring about is chasing people that don't want to be chased. When we're younger, or I think even in midlife, we can spend a lot of time trying to hold on to friendships, to make them work, to keep groups of friends together, to keep family together, to keep the traditions going, to be the hostess. A member of our community said they were afraid that if they stopped with the traditions, no one would pick them up and run with them. But at some point, it isn't ours to carry. We call, we check in, we reach out, we try to make plans, or at least open ourselves up to making plans. We try to keep the connections alive. We try to keep the traditions alive. I shared my frustration with all of you in November over our family Thanksgiving that honestly just didn't turn out to be what I thought it was going to be. I did too much. I worked too hard. I over-organized everything. I had this idea in my mind that it would take a couple hours to cook, several hours to cook, but we would spend hours at the table. But the kids are getting older. They have other things to do, other places to be. And so I took your advice. And this year, for the first time ever, we are going on a trip over Thanksgiving, just my husband and I. And we might do a family dinner when we get back, maybe a potluck or just cook spaghetti. But I'm not going to spend a whole day in the kitchen and 2 whole days cleaning my house and setting the table and 2 days putting everything back together after everyone has gone home. It's not mine to carry anymore. And I hope someone in my family will pick up the tradition, or maybe the tradition will just have to change. I did it to myself. I know that. I was trying so hard to replicate what my grandmother did and then what my mother did. And my family isn't looking for that anymore. And so, yeah, I was super disappointed. But how many things like that do each of us have in our lives where we feel that requirement to carry the load? It's time to just stop and say, you know what? Not mine to carry anymore. I am going to let it go. I think for so long, I know with myself, I told myself that, friendships require a lot of extra work. Family relationships require a lot of extra work. But over time, and especially at this age, something becomes clear. If a friendship only survives because you are the one constantly holding it together, was it really ever standing on its own in the first place? Was it really what you thought it was? So when you stop chasing, not in a bitter way, not in a dramatic way, there's no poor me. You just quietly step back and stop chasing and start pouring that time and that energy into yourself. And, maybe it's new interests, finding what makes you happy, what makes you feel calm, relaxed, and even healthy. Find things, find a life that's easier for you, and let the cards fall where they may. What I found is when you let the cards fall where they may, some people step forward. Some relationships become stronger. Other people, other friends disappear. And honestly, so what? It tells you everything you needed to know. Save your time. Save your energy for you. Number 2, stop explaining yourself. I do it all the time. Another thing that gets really lighter with age is that feeling that you no longer have to keep up with the Joneses. You no longer have to explain. There is a time in our life where we feel like we have to justify every decision. Often it's those years when we're climbing the corporate ladder, trying to fit in with other women our age. And we question, what are people thinking about me? Do they think I fit in? Do they like me? We don't need the kind of space that we feel that we need now. We don't have the same kind of hurt that we had then. We don't have to show up like we used to, always over-prepared and always in charge. We spend a lot of energy, I think, trying to make sure that everyone understands our intentions. I do this to myself. It's a super bad habit. Instead of enjoying myself, sometimes I worry about what other people are thinking. I have shared with you many times that, I wrote 2 books, a book on women in leadership and a book on Mean Girls. And part of why I wrote those books is because people kept saying to me after I left local political office, they kept saying to me, what are you going to do next? What are you going to do next? I felt like I had lost my definition. So I had to pick up this big new project so that people thought I was still relevant. I did it to myself. No excuses. I defined myself by what I had accomplished, and I felt like I had to keep accomplishing more so that the people that liked me, respected me, wanted to spend time with me, wouldn't walk. But guess what? Some of them did anyway. Oh my gosh, it just started thundering and lightning here, and the rain is coming down. I've got the back door open with just the screen. So if you hear a big clap of thunder, don't fear. I'm okay. The roof isn't leaking. I think with time and age comes this realization, almost a comfort. The people who truly care about you really aren't the one that require long explanations. And the people who are determined to misunderstand you, well, they're going to misunderstand you no matter how carefully you explain. And those are the people that, if you look back, you found yourself always over-explaining, trying to make them happy. Let go of the responsibility that comes from you, from inside you. I'm ready to stop over-explaining, to stop defending every choice I make, because the people that care about me, the people that care about you, already understand you. And the rest, like I said, well, they probably were never really listening anyway. I always say there are people that like the drama, and if there's no drama, they're moving on. Number 3, stop feeling like you have to manage everyone else's feelings. Like I said, this is a big one for many women because for years we were the caregiver. That was my whole problem with Thanksgiving. What was everybody going to think? And I worked myself into such a tizzy. And it wasn't the first time I had done it. But this was finally the time where I said no more. If you spent your life, being the strong one, we talked about that in detail last week. But if you're that person, the dependable one in your friend group or family, the fixer, the peacekeeper, the organized one, for years and years, you probably at some point felt a little trapped. Like you were responsible for making sure everyone else was okay because that's the role you had taken on. You tried to smooth over conflicts, to make it work, to be flexible. You tried to prevent hurt feelings. You tried to keep everyone happy. No, not your problem. Somewhere along the way, we all realized that while we were busy managing as much as we could get our hands on everyone else's emotions, everyone else's feelings, we didn't have any time to pay attention to ours. And eventually that becomes exhausting. And at our age, it can affect our health, right? And it's not, we don't have to slow down and stop caring because we've changed. We just stopped playing the game. We finally realized that we're not responsible for managing the emotional happiness, well-being of everyone else around us. I think more people can step up if forced to step up. But if you do it for them, that's much easier. And so when you finally step out of that role, it takes this huge emotional weight off of you. And maybe you don't realize it right away, but it starts to affect, like I said, your health, your feelings, your anxiety. Number 4 is stop trying to save every friendship, every relationship. Many women find that they have to let go once they get a little bit older. Let go of those friendships, those relationships that have run their course, that have simply expired. We talk about it all the time here that, not every friendship lasts forever. They don't have to end in a fight. They just simply fade away. Phone calls get further apart. You don't return text messages immediately. You don't do backflips to change your schedule. The connection just isn't what it once was, and you sense the change. And instead of chasing it, you allow yourselves to step back. We allow ourselves to step back. We may not try to rescue it. We may not reach out all the time. We may not try to reconnect. But we always seem to wonder what we did wrong. And so at some point, it's not about not caring. It's about allowing yourself to just let go, to put yourself first. Because some friendships, quite honestly, they belong in the bookshelf with your great books, where you keep all your great memories, versus trying to relive something and recreate something or keep something going that no longer feels rewarding. Just let it rest. Not with anger, not with bitterness. It's just a level of acceptance, and that's between you and whatever that relationship meant to you. But remind yourself that you're doing it for your peace. And at some point, if you don't take care of yourself, it's going to affect your health. Number 5, stop caring so much about what other people think. I mentioned keeping up with the Joneses. Well, I have way too much experience with this one. In large part because when I was in public office, I was being judged a lot. And so I worried about it. When we're younger, we do spend an incredible amount of time worrying about what other people think of us. Is my yard nice? Is my house clean? Are my kids dressed nicely and clean? Do I have a good marriage? Is my car clean? I mean, no one wants to do the wrong thing, say the wrong thing. We want to fit in. We wonder if people are judging us. Do they approve of our choices? And, the truth is, when we get to this age, we come to the realization that other than a little gossip, nobody ever really cared about what we were doing. More people than ever are focused on themselves, on their own lives, on their own issues, and really could care less about us unless there's a good scoop. And the opinions that once felt so heavy slowly start to lose their grip as we get older, because we realize that trying to please everyone was always impossible. Always impossible. How did we get caught up in it? Someone will always disagree with us. Some will always misinterpret what we said, how we said it, the tone of our voice. Someone will always have a different opinion, a different judgment. Some people just will never like us. Never. But at some point you have to decide that you're not going to carry that anymore. There were problems along the way that were never mine to fix. Relationships that only worked if I was willing to work harder at them. And when you let go of those things, you discover, I think we all discover, that we have more energy, just mentally relaxed, happier, sleeping better, because we may have less relationships, but they're ones that truly matter. What I know now that I wish I knew then. But one of the freedoms of getting older is realizing that we don't have to carry everything anymore. We don't have to care about things that don't care for us, or chase things that don't want to be caught. You don't have to fix every misunderstanding. I've had a hard time telling myself with my grown-up children, you don't have to manage everyone else's emotions, and you don't have to keep every friendship and relationship alive. It's not all on your back. And you certainly don't have to live your life according to everyone else's opinions. What do you care about? What do you want to take a class? Do you want to join a new group? Do you want to start a new hobby? You don't have time for those things when you're constantly worried about everyone else. Well, thanks for stopping by the channel. It was great to see you guys again, to be back from vacation and back into normal life. And I look forward to talking to you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.